Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And we have a special show tonight talking about, and just saying this could get me thrown off the air because anytime I mentioned the word or a fire or anything today, my posts were taken down off Facebook, but I'm going to shoot for it. And if my Facebook Live goes blank, then go to my YouTube channel. But we're going to talk about the dreaded biolab. And because anytime I've mentioned it today, those posts have been taken down. So someone does not want us to do a show tonight and discuss biolab. Because anytime I mention that in a post today, it has been flagged and taken down. So guys, I got to turn my thing on my phone down. So we'll see what happens. So I want to welcome special guest Alex McDonald. We're going to discuss the biolab incident tonight, fallout, and other things, and the aftermath. And we'll see what happens if I'm allowed to stay on the air tonight or not. So let's bring Alex in. And after I bring him in and he says hello, then I'll say hello to a bunch of you in the chat. Hey, Al, welcome to the show. Hey, man, doing pretty good. Well, like I told everybody, I hope we're able to stay on Facebook tonight. Not certain.
Right. So I've posted quite a lot about biolab, including the flyovers, right? The drone flights I've done out there. And I haven't had any of this happen to me, which tells me once again, somebody or something is out there targeting you on this and trying to get you blocked or banned right now. Now, I'm not going to speculate as to who or what, but I'll just put this out there. The residents of Rockdale County are very concerned about what's going on, and I'm sure they want to hear from you. I can think of a couple of entities that might want to get you shut down, and I'm not saying that it is them, but it doesn't strike me that many residents of Rockdale would want to get you struck down.
No, I don't. But just so everyone is aware, Alex, the way this works is someone or some entity is targeting this show to try to get you, the audience, not to be aware that we're going to discuss this tonight. So why don't you guys...
We're live, just so people know, we're live on Larry's channel this week from Rockdale. We're live on my channel this week in Rockdale. And of course, Larry's YouTube channel this week from Rockdale. You can find it there. But I think we'll be okay.
I think so too. But what I would like everybody to do, this is a very important topic, very important show. Share this show, like this show. Let's go ahead and get this out here so as many people possible can watch this and gather some information and learn some things about what we're going to talk about tonight. Because, a lot of times in Rockdale County, my show, Alex's show, sometimes these are the only places you can actually go and find out unfiltered information and information that is vetted, and we're not going to make things up. Yes. And we're not going to report things we can't prove or substantiate. And if it is something that's speculation, we will tell you point blank. This is speculation. There is no definitive proof that this is what's going on, but this is what we think could be going on. Yes. It will be made very clear one way or the other. That's one of the things I like about Hannity, Al. Hannity will point blank tell you he's not a journalist. He's a talk show host.
Right.
He point blank puts that out there. I'm not a journalist. I'm a talk show host.
Right.
And, but Al and I sort of cross-contaminate both of those things. We're sort of talk show hosts, sort of news.
Listen, I report on news and I give opinion. And, I'm very...
We're hybrids.
Yeah, I'm very clear about that.
But we're clear on which is which.
Yeah. And I want to be clear on, so before we actually get digging into this, I guess I'll issue a mea culpa, a my bad, because it's been a week now, Larry. It's been over a week. It's been over. Well, just it was last Sunday morning. It's now a week later, Sunday evening. So it's been a week and a half a day. I was initially two things I said initially. First of all, I said, you know what? I'm not inclined to come down too hard on government for this one because this is on BioLab. And I got to tell you, that opinion is changing rapidly. The second thing is BioLab itself. Initially, I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, mainly because of the 450 jobs that we're talking about. But again, as the days have passed and as more information has come out and there has been less and just a conspicuous lack of response from BioLab, that position is rapidly changing as well. So I want to put a little mea culpa. I may have defended BioLab. Listen, I'm not going to say it was a blanket defense. I said this is entirely on them, and they have to take responsibility for this. And that's what I'm not seeing.
Yep.
I'm not seeing them taking responsibility.
Well, and we're going to talk about some of that too, Al, because there were some things put out today and some responses, and we'll talk about that. But let me go ahead and say hi to some of our listeners that follow us regularly. Charlotte Gellert, welcome to the show. Mary Boysworth, welcome to the show. Joey Williams, great to have you. Catherine Lynn, and we've got Cheryl Moulton. We've got chatting it up with CJ Lester. We got Angela Asperino. We have got Dan Burks. We've got Cheryl and Ben Garcia. We've got Lisa Lancaster. We've got my good friend, Sherry Thomas. Nice to have you tonight, Sherry. We've got our resident engineer, Mr. Clayton Orwick. Clayton's somebody I would love to have a conversation personally about this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. Then there we have got Mr. George Kelichek, and we've got our good friend from up north in the land of waltz, Danielle Munoz. Then we have William Campbell, Judy Bond, Josh Allgood, our good friend Josh Allgood. And we've got Susan Jones Smith. We have, let me keep going here. I know we got Neil Campbell, Corliss Turner. There you go. We've got all those folks on here. And Greg, my good friend Greg Thomas. Greg is a business owner, also right up the hill from me. Owns a business on Black Lawn also. So just, so you guys know, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about this evening now, about a post you put out and some responses from business owners off Black Lawn and Olympic Court.
Yeah. First of all, thank you everybody for tuning in. Share the show. I want to go over a timeline real quick because I think it's important, Larry. So it was Wednesday, I believe, that Brad Nitz of Channel 2 posted an infographic showing the levels of, I think it was chlorine at the time. If it wasn't chlorine, forgive me, but he showed the levels of this particular compound being 22 times higher than the FDA's action level, right? Yeah. And the county, I got some graphics here, and the county went ahead and called that out as misinformation. This was on Wednesday. Well, then Brad Nitz posted, "Hey, listen, I pulled this data from the EPA's website." Sorry, I said FDA. I think I meant the EPA. I pulled this data from the EPA's website, and this is what they're saying. This isn't what I'm saying. Well, then the very next day, Larry, we got the very next day, well, I guess it was technically 2 days later. This was the morning of Friday. We got this update from the deputy fire chief Robinson, who did a little video update that was posted to their Vimeo site, stating that all of the levels were safe. Everything's safe. We're monitoring all this. It's all super safe. Later that very same day, Oz Nesbitt secretly sent out this letter to the sheriff, telling the sheriff that he needs all businesses shut down and blocked from doing business on Black Lawn Road and Olympic Court because the levels of chemicals in the air are unsafe. Unsafe. From, wrong button. From Tuesday. Now, two explanations for this that I see, Larry. Number one is that these conditions are just changing that rapidly. From Thursday morning when they, well, from Tuesday when they told Brett Nitz that his information was misinformation, just simply not true, to Thursday morning. And let's bear in mind the levels may very well have been that high when the EPA reported them and Brad Nitz published them. To Thursday morning when the fire chief tells us, no, all the levels are perfectly safe. To Friday afternoon when Oz Nesbitt sends out his little, Larry, my audio, they're saying my volume's low. My levels are good. Can you adjust your slider on your end?
Which one do I need to do?
Yeah, you're going to have probably volume sliders for each guest over there. To Friday afternoon when Oz Nesbitt sends out this letter to the sheriff saying that the levels were super high. I suppose the levels of the chemicals in the air are fluctuating this fast, or well, you know what the or is, right? Or they are saying one thing publicly and another thing behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, I don't know which it is. I'm speculating, but this is why transparency in these events is absolutely critical. And the people I'm not hearing anything from, first of all, EMA. Apparently, look, we had an EMA director, Dan Morgan, who was, when anything like this happened, he was always front facing. He was out there every single day. He would make statements. He would go in public and I think a lot of that comes down to his experience dealing with things, not necessarily chemical fires, but emergencies, right?
He was a very competent individual.
He was very competent.
Very competent.
I've heard, other than one press conference, and I think the only reason they had that is because it was televised. Other than one press conference, I've not heard a peep from our new EMA director. Where the hell is she? Where are her updates on the level? Why? I mean, the general public isn't hearing anything. Why am I getting leaked letters from the chairman to the sheriff saying, wait, the levels are unsafe. You have to stop these people from doing business. Why am I hearing that in a leaked letter? And why am I not hearing it from our so-called EMA director? And why is nobody else hearing it? I only hear it because I get a leaked letter that should never have come into my possession, but it did. We should have, every bit of this, we should be hearing from our EMA director. Where the hell is she? That's my question. This matters. This is a big deal. I was over there flying yesterday. We'll get to the business closures, but I was over there flying yesterday while businesses are being forcibly locked down in Rockdale County. There was one loader being operated over there Saturday. It's almost like, now, maybe there's a reason for that. And maybe it's incumbent on the EMA director, who is the lead agency on this. It's not the county, it's not the sheriff, it's EMA that is the lead agency on this. Maybe it's incumbent on them to come out and actually keep us appraised and updated. But in my opinion, common sense tells me that this should be a priority. And there were a dozen loaders and heavy machinery over at that site Saturday, and only one was operational. Only while gases are puking into the atmosphere. I have a report. We haven't seen a report from this time around, and we've also received no credible information from the supposed people in charge this time around. So all I can do is look at the official reports from 2004, and we can draw some conclusions from that, I think. In 2004, it was 12.5 million pounds of chlorine that went up in flames, Larry. That fire was smaller than this one. Back then, they found chlorine let me. Sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to
Misspeak.
misquote.
Yes.
Yes. I do not want to misspeak. Pardon me. So bear with me while I pull up the report. Back then, they found chlorine, hydrochloric acid, and hydrogen bromide contamination. That's from, and remember, that's from 2004. That's not this current one. We don't know about, we know chlorine because I mean, I think their hand was forced and they had to say chlorine. But this company, this company is most likely using the same chemicals. They're most likely storing them in the same warehouse. So it's quite likely that the same chemicals went up in flames, which means there could be how much hydrochloric acid? I have no idea. But we've got rain on the way. I think they're forecasting rain for Monday, aren't they?
I think so.
What's that going to result in? Can the EMA director please get off her ass and tell us what that's going to do? Is there hydrochloric acid in the air that's going to come raining down on us if it starts raining?
Well,
I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
I know right now, Al, I do know that they were plugging up all of the stormwater drains that come from that area.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, they're preventing anything getting to the lake.
Well, it already did, and they contaminated that lake already because they've already been doing decontamination operations over at that lake. Just being real. And when they built that new building, it caused a lot more runoff. And anytime there's a microburst now of rain, my parking lot floods. Used to not flood before they built that building.
Right.
Now, every time you get a heavy downpour, the stormwater system cannot handle that water that comes from there, and we flood every single time. Every single time. I mean, it gets high. I mean, I've got larger trucks, and you will have that water get so high in the parking lot that it'll actually get right up to the bottom of these trucks, and the trucks all have to have steps so for a grown man can actually step up into it. Yeah. So this is not a little bit of water out. So this is because plugging up those drains is not going to stop that runoff.
No, absolutely not. It's of course runoff is going to get there. But my concern now is, well, they found hydrochloric acid in 2004, according to the official report of that disaster. What does that mean for this time? And with rain coming again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a meteorologist. I don't know how this works, but people are rightfully going to be concerned about it. And I got to tell you, it's incumbent on the county, I think, to answer these questions, especially, and this is another reason my opinion on this is changing, Larry, especially because, as it turns out, the county owns this property.
So Jim Kennedy put something on here, and I would like, Jim, where you got that information at. So Jim says that the ash has been tested, and it contains cyanide.
So I saw somebody post that DeKalb County had tested some debris, and it tested positive for hydrogen cyanide. And I reached out to the county, and I said, this is being reported, right? People are sharing this information. If this isn't true, you've got to nip it in the bud immediately, because I sent a message directly to Oz Nesbitt. I never got a response, naturally, because he's not going to respond to me. But I sent a text message directly to Oz Nesbitt, and I included a screenshot, and I said, it's being reported that there's hydrogen, the debris is testing positive for hydrogen cyanide, which is lethal stuff. I mean, I'm talking absolutely deadly stuff.
Okay.
Now, I think it was most likely if there was something tested, I happen to think it was most likely hydrogen chloride, which absolutely was detected. And I wonder if some there was a mix up in the wording, right?
Hey,
But I sent a message to Oz and I said, you've got to respond to this. You've got to. Because if it is hydrogen cyanide, you've got to warn the public. And if it isn't, you've got to nip this in the bud before it spreads.
Michael Myers just joined the show. You remember Michael from the...
I know Mike, yeah.
Yeah, Mike wanted to know if the plant was in Rockdale. Yeah, Mike, the plant was in Rockdale, and it's the biolab plant that's over off of Black Lawn and Covington Highway. So you ought to be familiar with it. But yeah, it's the same one that people they've been responding to small fires since the beginning of time. So
yes, yeah, yeah.
So
Since the
Josh
beginning of
Allgood
time.
made a comment. I mean, and we'll have to verify this, but Josh Allgood just said that the county on their website is saying they don't own the land. I hope they're not saying that.
I have a report here that states they do.
It's the development authority, but the development authority is really the county.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and everybody's got to understand that. I mean, they can hide behind their little shell game all they want, but the development authority is really an arm of the county. That's
well, I
just
mean, where
reality.
does the development authority get their money and their bonds issued in order to buy property? They get it from the taxpayers.
The taxpayers.
They get it from us through the county. So yeah, the county owned that property. The EMA's public response has been severely lacking. BioLab have shut down a bunch of businesses. You wanna talk about that, Larry?
Yeah, we'll talk about that, Al. So they put a statement out, and you posted it, right? Mm-hmm. That they had been working with the government officials. They'd been working with the residents and businesses that have been impacted by this. So we asked the question: any of the businesses in the direct area on Black Lawn and Olympic Court, have you been reached out
from BioLab?
And you saw on your thread how many of those businesses, my neighbors, reached out to you. I was the first one to respond that no one has reached out to me.
Yeah,
and no one reached out to me from government or BioLab. Now, I have been doing reaching out, right? And I'm going to say that, yes, I have reached out and they have responded to me, but I initiated the contact, Alex, right? Yes. So I did, but no one took the initiative and reached out to me. And Greg Thomas is on here right now, and Greg is one of the people who responded and said no. Lamar over at Power Performance said no. And Ryan, who shares a building, said no. Steve across the road, point blank, no one's reached out from him. The folks down at the Service Master said no one had reached out to them. There are several other businesses on there, point blank. There were at least a dozen businesses that responded to that, Alex, and said no one reached out to them. Not one single entity.
Yeah, not one entity. Here's what BioLab say. We're working to identify ways to support local businesses here in Conyers over the course of this situation. What do you think step one of identifying ways to support local businesses should be, Larry? Could maybe reaching out to the business to see what they need?
Yep.
Wouldn't that be step one? Then they go on to say we're engaged with residents. Show of hands in the chat. How many of you residents have heard from a BioLab spokesperson that hasn't reached out yourself to get debris cleaned up?
Alex, they are going to be setting up some sort of community thing this coming week. And I'm going to say something right out here right now, and it is what it is. I was advised by an attorney today to not go talk to BioLab about anything.
Yep.
Because if you do, then you are probably going to hinder yourself in future litigation against BioLab. So if you actually have a legitimate claim against BioLab, you do not need to go to wherever they set up shop and have conversations with them. You need to acquire an attorney and have that attorney do your talking.
Yeah. Well, here's what this looks like to me. And I'm not saying
Dan Williams, one way the plumbing place on
never heard from yet.
Never. And then Dan wanted to know what they told me. And Dan, I'm going to be transparent. The reason that that letter got sent to the sheriff was because of me. But because I point blank, my conversation with government was this: you can't have it both ways. Either the levels are too high, or you're keeping us from our business because you're keeping the roads clear for BioLab to do cleanup. I said, and neither one's
Which isn't the
acceptable.
case anyway, because look how what little activity was actually taking
I know,
place there.
but this is what I said. I said you've got to come clean. It's either one of two reasons: either it's not safe, or you don't want us in the way, and
Yeah.
you have to clarify which one, because you just can't tell people they can't have access to their properties and business and not give them a legitimate reason.
Right.
And then you see what
So
happens.
that, well, then behind the scenes, he sends a letter to the sheriff. They don't make a public statement. They don't let the public know, hey, we're going to have to shut these businesses down because the levels of contamination are just too high in this area. They don't even specify what area it is. They just name 2 roads. So, I mean, there are other. If you draw a radius, those 2 roads, it's 3,000 feet from the center of the contamination of the site to the end of Olympic Court is a 3,000-foot radius. Draw a 3,000-foot radius arc around that, and look at all the properties that are contained in that. That's almost a mile across, Larry. It's almost a mile diameter that we're talking about here, if that 3,000 feet is accurate.
Josh, would you send that? Josh Auger, would you send that? Because my thing, well, yeah, here, I'll do it. I can right now, Al. I am sending you. Josh actually sent the email chain where a representative of the county did say they didn't own the land, Al.
It's interesting. Send that to thisweekinrockdale@gmail.com.
It wouldn't let me
did
do
you just
that.
send it
I
to
just sent it. Yeah, it wouldn't let me do
Okay.
that the way it was sent. I had to send it to your.
But yeah, this is how this appears to me, and I'm not saying that that's what this is, but this is how it appears to me, and I imagine how it appears to everybody else. This is BioLab once again saying something publicly to the rest of the world, right? To their investors and their stockholders. And they're saying, oh yeah, we're actively engaging with business. We're actively engaging with the residents. Whereas in reality, on the ground, no one, or virtually no one, has heard a word from these people. They're posting these feel-good updates to their website and doing nothing here in Rockdale, including not appearing to be in a hurry to get this cleared up so that businesses can reopen. Because like I said, and you know what, I have the video, I can play it if you want to see it, but there was one load of a dozen pieces of heavy machinery on that site that are there for cleanup. Only one loader was operational Saturday.
Well, when I was told this too, Al, and this is another thing: the more pieces of equipment and the more cleanup they're doing at the same time, the more that they are disturbing the chemicals and causing the plume to be larger. So that they may have not wanted the large plume this weekend.
And again, if that is the case, then make that clear, right? Let people know, because like you said, you didn't hear a thing. You had to reach out to them, right? You had to reach out to the county and say you can't have it both ways. Has anyone come out publicly and said, well, we can't have more than one piece of machinery going because it will create more of a plume, so that we can then ask the question, well, wouldn't it be better to get this over sooner than draw it out? And so maybe get more pieces of machinery going. We'll deal with the plume, because we've been dealing with it for over a week now.
And Clayton wanted to know who's paying for the equipment. And I did see in a statement that BioLab had got a couple of cleanup companies to come in from, I think, Louisiana and somewhere else. So it is BioLab who is doing the cleanup.
Yeah, I'm going to guess they're not too thrilled about paying them overtime, which is why nothing was getting done over the weekend.
Yeah, because they worked many hours all week long, and you be honest, those people may have bowed up and refused to work the weekend. I mean, trust me, I run construction crews. I know how that works. They bow up all the time, right?
I mean, it's quite possible, but then bring in a fresh crew, because there are businesses that aren't going to survive this. You know this.
I
There are
know that.
businesses over there that are going to have to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, there, and and I know people that are in business that are well established, and Alex, they can't handle 2 and 3 weeks of not being able to. And we're
Right.
going to go into week 2 right here, right? And this is, and I'm going to be transparent with everybody too about my intentions of my business. I'm not going to make people go back to work to that building initially.
Hmm.
I am going to rent a temporary space. Um, and I'm going to do certain parts of my operation at a temporary space, and we're going to have our building tested. We're going to have our building decontaminated, and we're going to have it cleaned to make sure that when we do reoccupy it, that no contaminants are in there to harm our employees, and that's what we're going to
Right.
do. And you and I both know how we intend to get compensated for that too, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, each business is going to have to sue individually, and you probably want to do it before the class actions force these people into bankruptcy, because these class actions, I think, are going to end up screwing people with a valid claim. Here's my plea to everybody: do not sign on to a class action. You are not going to win anything, and you're going to end up harming, number one, your own rights if you do have a valid claim. That would be my advice. Listen, I'm not an attorney, so take it for what it's worth. But these class actions never benefit the class. They only ever benefit the attorney. So give it a lot of thought before you sign on to one of those, at least.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and most likely you're not going to get any money if in the class
yeah,
action.
you won't. You may see a few $100. That's going to be about it. Certainly not going to compensate you for your losses. Yeah, what I'm seeing from BioLab is, I mean, it's lax. It's
Alex, I mean,
embarrassing.
and this is what I'm going to talk about too, right? In 1974, when this company came here, Rockdale County was a rural county with 20 some thousand residents.
Right.
You know what? At that point, when that chemical plant came here, not that big of an impact, right? But we have been doing high density housing, and where have we been doing it? Within 5 miles of that plant is where
Right.
the majority of the high density housing is being developed.
Right.
So, 50 years ago, when this plant came here in a county of population of 20 some thousand people, probably was a fit. But now that we're pushing 100,000 people and the majority of the population is within a certain mile radius of that plant, it's probably not the right fit for Rockdale County now. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm truly just me, right? As someone who owns a business or operates a business and property there, dude, I don't want that thing there anymore. And that's just selfishness, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie about it. I don't feel comfortable being that close to that facility on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. See, now I still think so. So my opinion on BioLab is changing as the days progress, and as they continue to put out these ridiculous statements, and without at least anecdotally, according to our chat and the poll that I put up, without actually doing anything. Right? It's all symbolic, the stuff they're doing. So my opinion on this particular company is changing gradually. But I still think a company like this would be fine if they were regulated properly, inspected properly, and actually were abiding by the rules. But here's the thing: the more information I'm given, and which I'm not going to go public with a lot of this, at least yet, because I want to see an official report. I want to see what the official report shows before I talk about any of the information I'm getting behind the scenes. But the more of the stuff I see behind the scenes, yeah, the less of a fit I feel they might be, simply because of well, let's call it a pattern of behavior. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad behavior, just a pattern of behavior.
Well, and let's be honest, Al, they got that sweetheart deal with the Development Authority purchasing that land in 19, and that tax abatement that they got, and I mean, let's just be real. I mean, they got a sweetheart deal.
Well, I'll say yes. I don't know because I haven't seen what they got.
I got you. I mean, they got a 10-year tax abatement.
Yeah, for how much? Because they're in the top 10 taxpayers in the county.
They did not get an abatement on BOE taxes.
Okay.
So they got their abatement on the county. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, it's just, I think we've got to be careful.
Al Smith asked, does Rockdale County actually have the personnel to monitor this type of business? I don't think Rockdale County need to.
It wouldn't be to. It would be the state and the feds.
So the cost would be borne by BioLab, right? It's the companies that have to cover the cost of regulation. If BioLab do rebuild in Rockdale, they should be forced to obviously be forced to subject to regular inspections by regulators at their expense. It doesn't need to be something Rockdale County does. And even if it does fall onto Rockdale County, Rockdale can contract with experts in that field, right? We don't need to hire staff we can contract with the experts but yeah, most likely it's going to be state or federal that and it's going to have to be forced compliance, I believe, based on some of the documents I've received. I think it will have to be an instance of forced compliance, and that to me would be I think enough for me to say, yeah, all right, maybe they'll be a good fit. Listen, I don't want to see 450 people lose their jobs. And, a lot of that might be temporary labor, but it's still, a lot of those temps are probably Rockdale County residents. Even if they're not Rockdale residents, they're probably from our neighboring counties. And I don't want to see them get hit anymore. I don't want to see anybody any more damaged by this than they need to be. You know what I'm saying? Or than they already have been, I should say. So that's where my hesitation comes in. I'm also not a big fan of the cancel culture, right? Something happens that I don't like, and so I immediately jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, burn them, like they're witches. I want to see the final report, and I think we're all going to have to wait for that before any decisions are made on BioLab regardless. I don't believe anybody can make a single decision until we see an official report, and who knows how long that's going to be.
Oh, I get it. And, and then, Al, I've talked to several business owners that were there in 04, and they point blank say they got screwed in 04. You know what I mean? This whole situation. And that they don't want a duplication of 04.
Yeah. Nicole says it's kind of a contradiction, and I'm not picking on you, Nicole. Forced compliance is already in place. The problem is it's not being enforced. Then it's not forced compliance. That's the point, right? From this point on, it has to be forced compliance. A prerequisite of forced compliance is that it is enforced by the regulators. So yeah, it's a lot of this failing is on the regulators.
Well, Alan, and then also we've got the issue of we've got chemicals that you're not supposed to mix with water, and the suppression system that was set up for the building was a water-based sprinkler system.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. But again, I'm not the fire chief. I'm not the person that signed off on this.
You're right. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right?
It doesn't make sense to me. No.
So I mean,
there should be a chemical suppressant system in place.
Yes. So I mean, so it sounds to me as like if you've got the wrong suppressant system in place, or this, Al, you were not supposed to store those type chemicals in that building.
I mean, I think I may have said this on the last show. When I was a lot younger, one of my first jobs was designing clean rooms for mainframes. I'm that old that when I was doing this, mainframes took up entire rooms, and I designed clean rooms. I couldn't design a water sprinkler system in these facilities, Larry. It had to be Halon at the time, Halon systems. Not anymore. It's not Halon anymore, obviously, but at the time it was Halon because it was the only safe way to actually suppress a fire in one of these facilities.
Al, Greg said he was there in '04. Greg's business has been there since '84, I believe. But Greg said he was there in '04 and he had to go through his own insurance to get compensated for the lost wages and income.
Yeah, I think people are going to. I think people are going to be in a position where they're either going to do that, they're either going to claim against their insurance, or the other alternative obviously is to sue. But of course, suing takes a lot of time and money, and that's what prohibits many people from not suing. You know what I mean?
So,
Al Smith, who at the local level has failed us? I don't know. I can tell you my opinion since the fire. Since the fire, I think Oz Nesbitt has shown with his actions that he doesn't appear to be entirely forthcoming. The fact that we're being told one thing publicly, and then in this private letter to the sheriff, he's telling the sheriff the levels are unsafe. I think the fire department maybe should clarify a few things, considering they posted an update Friday morning telling us that the levels were all safe, only for the chairman to send out a letter privately saying, no, they're not safe. I think that needs to be answered for. And the lead agency on this, Rockdale County EMA, I think they need to be out front more on this and giving us, we should be getting daily updates on the air quality. Daily updates on where the contamination zone is, which areas of Rockdale are currently, even if they're not classified as unsafe, how close are they to the EPA's level of concern? Do you see what I'm saying? We're getting none of this, none of it. And the businesses that have been shut down, they especially deserve this information. Especially they deserve this.
And those businesses have got no information other than a phone call that came after that letter came out, Al, that said, if you're at your business, you can't be there, and we'll tell you when you can come back.
Yeah.
That was the phone call.
Yeah,
that was the phone call.
And don't try to sneak over to your business and service some vehicles because they'll threaten to arrest you.
Yeah, well, but they did give us permission to go and get some things and get in and out. Right.
But you had to be escorted by the chairman.
Well, we can now go without that. We can now go and just get things. But we're allowed to do that now. But you're not allowed to maintain a presence there, and you have to come and go. You're not allowed to. You're not. And I do know several of the businesses there went and got some of their equipment, got some of their things, and they've come and gone. Right. We actually did that Friday night too. We went and got a bunch of more things. And we have a lot of stuff. We're a very large subcontractor, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of trucks, a lot of equipment, we have a lot of stuff. And it was just, the couple of times we were in there for 30 minutes or so was just not enough time to get everything we needed.
Right.
And we had been stopped from going in there all week long. And we needed to get, now my guys, when I had them go back in, they went back in. They had gas mask on. We make sure they wear long sleeves and protective whatever. And they told me they still smelt the chlorine even through the gas mask, right?
Right.
But they didn't impact them, and they scrubbed down before they left. And they did say that there was residue that they scrubbed down off of them, even though it was covered up. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, I told you, I don't feel comfortable sending people in there back to work full time until my building is checked, and if need be, decontaminated and washed and scrubbed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the fact, right? I don't feel comfortable doing
Excuse
that
me.
until those actions are taken.
Yeah.
And that's what I intend to do. And that's why we're going to incur the cost of renting a temporary location for a month to operate out of, to be able to do that, to make sure we have a safe work environment for our employees.
Yeah. Yeah. Nicole, don't misunderstand me. I don't disagree with you. I agree 100% with everything you're saying. The this was a lot of this was a failure, I think, of regulation, right? A lack of enforcement. I agree with you entirely, especially when we live in a system where the regulators consider a fine to be enforcement without forcing a company to, and I'm not saying this happened in BioLab's instance, but this happens with industry all over the country, where the regulators' method of enforcement is a fine and no follow-up, and these companies manage to get away with murder. This is what I mean by forced compliance. If they do not comply, you shut them down. You don't issue a fine. You shut them down and send everybody home until they come into compliance. And you do that every week if necessary, until they learn that, hey, we've got to start doing things by the letter of the law. That's what I mean. If a system like that were able to be implemented, and we could listen, I think we need to be convinced that a system like that could be implemented, and that they wouldn't be able to find loopholes and skirt around the regulations, then I think companies like this could be a good fit for any community, quite frankly. Now, can that be implemented? Well, I've no idea. History would say no, because again, regulators up and down all over this nation, unfortunately, think a fine is going to force companies into compliance, and it rarely does. You got to have.
You got to have the ability to shut them down, Alex.
I'm
You have
gonna
to
talk about-
have the ability to say, okay, you're shut down until you
Yeah.
comply.
I'm gonna talk about let me talk about England just for a second. Companies like this in England have to have a regulator on staff. This is a government employee, a member of the British equivalent of the EPA, for example, who have to be hired full time by these companies and have to be on site, not 24 hours a day naturally, but they have to be there at least 8 hours a day, and then they report back to their governing agency about compliance. I wouldn't be opposed to a system like that, right? Because it's the company that has to bear the cost of that, not the taxpayers. So I wouldn't be opposed to they pay they don't employ this person, he's a contractor, and they pay the government for this person's time, if that makes sense.
And Al Smith made a comment when I was talking about the stuff in the situation that you should be at Larry. So you should be able to sue BioLab directly. And this is, again, I'm going to say this, that the businesses that are on Black Lawn, Olympic Court, and Veterans, and then I would say some of them that are out over on Covington Highway that were probably shut down due to no access. If you were not allowed access to your business and buildings, you are under a different set of circumstances than the majority of residents and businesses in Rockdale County, because these businesses were denied direct access. I have been advised by several attorneys that we should not join a class action if you are one of those businesses specifically, that you should seek separate representation, or a attorney that will represent multiple clients individually, which they can do, but it would not be a class action suit, that it would be detrimental for those particular businesses to entertain even the thought of a class action suit. They do not need to do that, especially because their circumstance is extremely unique.
Yes.
Compared to regarding everyone else. Everyone here was impacted. Don't get me wrong. But if you were at what I'm referring to, and several of the other business owners, as ground zero, right? Ground zero was impacted a lot differently than the rest of the county and and the outlying area. Would you agree with that, Al?
Yeah, yes. In particularly from a loss of income perspective, from a chemical contamination perspective as well, apparently, because you're still shut down because of unsafe levels. But yeah, I think to go back to that question, who failed here, Al? I think a lot of questions need to be answered. Why is the fire department publishing an update Friday morning saying all the levels are safe, and then the chairman sending out a letter Friday afternoon saying no, the levels aren't safe? Why is that happening? Why is the cleanup taking so long? Why is only one machine over there operational? If there's a valid reason for it, let's hear it. But it strikes me there should be much more urgency to this.
I'm just going to say this again, Al. I've been told by several lawyers that a class action suit is not the way to go.
Yeah, even for a group of businesses with similar circumstances, they're still not identical circumstances.
No, a singular lawyer can represent more than one business, but it will be singular lawsuits.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what we've got to understand is that that the businesses that are on Black Lawn, I'd say some even over on Covington Highway, Olympic Court, and Veterans are in a unique situation when it comes to this. And these other folks that are impacted somewhat, whatever, they may want to do one of these class actions because they don't win them. But us folks over there are probably going to have to put some money in the game initially to do this. And it is what it is, right? But we'll see what happens, right? I mean, the BioLab can't be, get off the hook with this. And just saying, and because the development authority owns the land, I don't know how that goes yet.
Let me address this real quick. Kelly, you have a very good point. They never said whether levels were safe and whether they're not. So the EPA have a website up with a little map on it, right? And they've got these little dots on this map, which I'm guessing there. At least when I look at it on my phone, there's no legend to go along with the map, so I'm not entirely. But I assume the dots are monitoring stations. And when I looked at it, I think it was either Monday or Tuesday, there were about half a dozen of these dots. Then I read a report that they were going to install a lot more monitoring stations. And then when I looked at it Friday, there were a bunch more dots. Here's the thing, though. When I looked at it Monday, all of the dots were green. It was Monday or Tuesday, and all of the dots were green. And again, there's no legend, so I don't know what a green dot means. But then when I went to that same place Thursday evening and Friday, every single one of the dots was yellow. Now, I don't know if this is a color-coded, green is safe, yellow is caution, and red is run for your lives, because there's no legend. I can't tell you that. But the fact that the dots were green on Monday and every single one of them was yellow on Friday, you guys decide. And I don't know if anybody has a link to that and can look now and see what color the dots are and let us know. But I'll tell you this, if you see any red dots, maybe out of an abundance of caution, maybe run. But yeah, no, she's right. They haven't told us. They haven't shown a graphic
Alex,
or a map.
read Judith Phillips' comment. And I did hear this.
10/1/24 to 10/2/24, air monitoring was conducted throughout the community overnight at 41 locations. Unfortunately, the instruments being used did not pass calibration upon return of 34. Those results were rejected. Unbelievable. Well, you know what? It's not unbelievable. It's government, man. Why would that ever surprise me?
And I want to say, Dan Williams,
That's
I put my number.
amazing.
I put my number out here, Dan. And if you would text me your information here, you and I can talk after the show, because I put it out there. Any of the businesses on Black Lawn, Olympic Court, and Veterans, if they want to reach out to me, I have Some people are going to call me in the next day or two, and I want to actually organize a meeting of all of us business guys in that area so that we can have a conversation about what we need to do and how we need to do it. And I do want us to have a unified plan in front when we move together on this. So just reach out to me, and I'm going to get you some information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's been a severe lack of transparency here, Larry. And listen, I think
Well, and look, and
right
Judah said that's straight from the EPA
from the
website.
EPA. Yes, there's been a definite lack of transparency, and I think people are in the chat are most likely right. That lack of transparency is because they've most likely been told don't say too much because of potential liability. I imagine that plays into it. But from our EMA, the supposed lead agency, I expect full transparency. And we just haven't got it. I'm sorry, we haven't received it.
Well, Alex, it comes down to this, and there's been several people that have asked me this question, right? And I'm going to throw it out here, okay? It's does our county government work for the taxpayers, or do they work for Biolab?
Right.
I'm you know what I mean? Who
Yeah.
who do they answer to, and who do they work for?
Yeah.
Do they answer to the voters, or do they answer to Biolab?
Yeah.
And a lot of the citizens that I've spoken with feel they have been ignored, they have been slighted in favor of Biolab, and that's their perspective. Okay, and you, it's hard to argue with someone's perspective, right?
For sure. For sure. But the bottom line is those businesses shouldn't have to learn that they've been shut down from a leaked letter that I publish. They should have learned this from the lead agency in charge of oversight and management of this cleanup, and that's our EMA. So again, I'll end by asking the first question. Where the hell is our EMA director?
No, you're right. I mean, you're 100% right now, right? It's what are we doing here, right? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing, and who's doing this, right? And why are they doing it?
Depriving people of their livelihoods with no information. No information. Just a secret letter to the sheriff.
Well, and I do want to thank. I also want to thank everybody for watching tonight, Alan. We have a big audience tonight, right? And this just and I want to thank you for that, because trust me, I did not know how this show was going to go today, with all the nonsense going on about my post being taken down, and I mean it was very clear that something or someone did not want a large number of people hearing this show tonight. But you guys came through. You heard this show. I mean, share the show. If you guys share this, it's going to get out there, and people are going to see this, and they're going to have information. Because trust me, what information we've put out here tonight is tenfold information than what anybody has heard so far. Would you agree with that, Alex?
I mean, yes and no, because I don't know. I'm. It bothers me, Larry, that it bothers me that we even have to come on here and say these things. It really does.
It is. But Alex, this is you and I you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, right? I've been doing this since about 2000 and whatever. It was actually January of 2019 when you and I started This Week in Rockdale, right? So,
but it's not normally, normally it's government incompetence or a bit of government shadiness, right? It's never really been people's livelihoods and people's health and safety. And Oz Nesbitt has always said that the public safety is his number one priority. This doesn't show that, Oz. Your response to this does not show that your number one priority is health and safety. Your EMA director's response to this does not show that your number one priority is health and safety. People finding out that their businesses have been shuttered indefinitely shouldn't come from a leaked letter on a random Facebook page. It should come from the EMA director or from the chairman of the county directly. And it really bothers me that we have to come on here and talk about this, because this county should not operate that way. I expect them to screw us on our taxes. I expect them to screw us with reckless spending. I expect them to run an inefficient, failing school system. What I don't expect them to do is allow chemicals to be pumped into the atmosphere for 7 days with seemingly no sense of urgency to correct it, and then send secret letters in the background shutting down businesses, talking about unsafe air quality levels.
Well, see, Alex, I do expect this, and I'll tell you why. You can look at any biohazard event that has happened in the United States of America, in any community, and this is the response you get from government.
It's tragic, man. It's
Because
tragic.
when it comes down to it, it's everyone covering their butt.
Yeah.
Because somehow they were involved in the incompetence of what happened or what led to what happened. Someone feels that they somehow may be held responsible or somehow liable. So everybody starts the cover up, Al.
Well, I'm going to hold out for the official report. Hopefully the official report comes out accurately. I'm going to compare the official report to the information that I've been receiving behind the scenes, and then decide where to go with it from there. But yeah, I'm very, very disappointed in Oz Nesbitt. I'm very disappointed in the EMA director. I'm very disappointed in the symbolic nonsense that BioLab is posting publicly and then actually doing nothing on the ground. Again, not one single person can tell me, a resident or a business member, that anyone from BioLab has reached out to them.
They've not. BioLab has not reached out any of that. That's just a feel-good statement.
Again, that has every appearance of a company trying to appease their stockholders. That's how that looks to me.
That's just a feel-good appeasement statement. Mm-hmm. That's all that is.
Yeah, because if they were truly trying to develop a strategy to help businesses, they would be on the ground talking to the businesses. And they're just not.
Did you see what Greg said about when he was up there trying to work at his business a couple of days this week? That one deputy let him in, then another deputy came and told him if he didn't leave, he was going to fine him $500.
Yeah.
So I mean, so that's the response you get. Hardworking business owners are. He wasn't the only business owner threatened this week to be arrested.
Yeah, and I feel bad. I don't know whether to feel bad for Sheriff Levitt or not in this, to be honest with you, because the sheriff's office is not the lead agency. They're an assisting agency on this, and I don't know what I would do if I were the sheriff. Because you have to consider you obviously have to consider people's health, safety, and well-being, but there comes a point where people can make those decisions for themselves, and I wonder when the sheriff is going to get to that point for himself and say, you know what, I'm an autonomous elected official. I don't have to do the bidding of the EMA and the chairman. You know, I can recognize that these are individuals who get to make their own decisions, who have livelihoods and business. They have rent to pay, right? They have mortgages to pay on these buildings. They have salaries to pay to employees. Families depend on these jobs for survival. And at some point, I think the sheriff is going to have to say, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not going to enforce this for you anymore. And I think we're very close to that point. And if that's not the case, then the county has to start being honest and straight with people, and instead of sending secret letters behind the scenes, again, have your EMA director get off her ass and go talk to the county. Have her go talk to these businesses and explain to them why they have to be shut down right now.
Also, right. So it's all levels are good, but then all levels aren't good.
Or not good. They're unsafe.
Right. I mean, they're good, then not good. I mean, you're right. Unsafe. Right. So you get told one thing and then another thing. Right. So that's when a couple of the people on here were saying, how can they ever believe anything that they're being told?
Right.
Right. When it bounces back and forth and they're always being misled.
Mm-hmm.
Janice says something about the governor.
Governor Kemp has sent GMA and all resources. There should be communication coming tomorrow about the Community Resource Center to start helping people. The businesses should get attention very soon. Yeah, a week later, and at the expense of the state. And that's great. Thank you to Governor Kemp and the state for doing something, for doing what the county simply hasn't done. Oh, just today or yesterday, the county did publish a telephone number of a telephone number that BioLab had set up for people to contact. Again, a week late, but hey, thanks for that. That's nice.
No, you're right, and I did speak with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, and he said that one of the reasons that the state has been a little bit, they have had a disaster with South Georgia and the hurricane.
Right.
And he did tell me, he said that the conditions there, he said it's being underreported, that it is a true disaster zone.
Yep.
That they tried to get 90 counties declared a state of emergency. The White House would only declare 11 initially. Then they got them to up it to 30. But there are communities in Georgia who were demolished and devastated by the hurricane also.
Yep.
So they are, I mean, so but the lieutenant governor told me that he would be putting some focus on Rockdale and the BioLab this week also.
Yeah. And, I'm not critical of the state here because, I mean, now they're the ones that are actually acting. Janice, you got some work on your hands, dear. When you take office, I think you got some people to look at and evaluate their maybe qualifications for holding the directorship that they actually hold, because EMA's response to this has been despicable.
Well, and I spoke to Janice about this too, and I was going to say, Janice is not actually even the chair-elect yet. She is the Democrat nominee, right? She won't be the chair-elect till after the general election in November, which she should easily win. But there's an unofficial write-in candidate, you know what I mean? So Janice is actually the Democrat nominee right now. Mm-hmm. She's actually not the chair-elect. Let's clarify it, right? So she actually has no authority or no power. So the fact that she's trying to do things as a private citizen right now,
going above and beyond,
is going above and beyond. Yeah. So we do thank you for that, Janice.
Yeah. And that's why I say she has some work on her hands when she takes office, because I don't expect this chairman to do a whole hell of a lot about this, if I'm being honest. It's sad because, again, public safety is supposed to be his number one priority, but he's proven for 7 days straight now, he's proven that is simply not the case. Simply not the case. Right now, his number one priority is preventing people like you, Larry, from making a living. It sure as hell isn't cleaning up this site with one loader over there working. And again, maybe there's a reason for that, but have your damn EMA director reach out and tell people. If this was Dan Morgan, he would have been out there every single day, giving us updates every single day about the status of the cleanup, an ETA, a timeline for the cleanup. I promise you Dan would have. Listen, Dan and I don't think we agreed on many things. I don't think we saw eye to eye on many things. But when it came to responding to an emergency, that man had his shit together. Pardon my French.
No, you and I both talked about that today, right? Al, we did talk about Dan, right?
Yeah.
And we said if Dan would have been there, we felt we would have a totally different response to this
Yeah,
whole
and
incident.
that's why I asked today. Is Dan Morgan still the EMA director? Has anybody heard from him? Because it was highly out of character, right?
Yeah.
It would have been if Dan Morgan were still the EMA director, it would have been highly out of character for us not to have heard from him. And they're the lead agency. It's on them, plain and simple. It is there. The onus is on them to keep the community updated, and they've done nothing. All they do is repost information from other people on their Facebook page. That's it. That's all they do. Yeah, Dan Morgan retired, and congratulations, Dan Morgan. I hope you have a wonderful retirement. And God knows we could have done with you here this past week.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Well, I mean, we've been on here long enough to talk this subject to death, but I think people got valuable information. I think they got a good update on the situation, and I think they know they need to stay engaged and stay involved, and they need to press government. I know government's not going to like it, but guys, you need to press government. And I'm going to tell you, guys, and just point blank, when I take office in January, press the hell out of me too. I won't mind it. I really won't. Press me, call me, whatever, right? And because anybody who gets offended or upset that they're an elected official and you're asking information and you're pressing them, then they probably don't need to be in office. And the next time they're up for re-election, you need to vote them out.
Yep.
Just my opinion, right?
Yep. 100%.
So, guys, Al, go ahead and final comments you got. Go ahead and make them.
No, I have nothing else. I'm going to end up getting sued over this anyway. I have no doubt that my page will be the next one to get taken down. Just be vigilant, right? That's all I can say is be vigilant. I started the show by saying my bad, mea culpa. Yeah, I kind of, I don't want to say I defended BioLab, but I gave BioLab a lot of benefit of the doubt. And that opinion is changing on a day-to-day basis. My opinion of the government's response to this is changing on a day-to-day basis for the worse. And it honestly, there are many things I have no problem criticizing this administration for, Larry. It bothers me that we're sat here having this conversation a week later. It really bothers me because this is people's health and livelihoods. And Oz Nesbitt, he's lied to us about many things, but he absolutely lied to us about his concern for public safety.
Guys, I'm going to tell you, I appreciate each and every one of you coming on here tonight and weathering the storm with us. This has been a challenging few weeks in Rockdale County with the flooding, the fires, and then don't forget you got hit with those taxes too. So you know the show last week's title was Fire, Flood, and Taxes, and I'll tell you what, guys, we're in turbulent times here in Rockdale County. And you, the citizens, I mean, you stood up for yourself this past election and you voted incumbents out, which is rarely done. But you're going to have to hold everyone who's an elected official in Rockdale County accountable because it's just proven if you don't hold these individuals accountable, they are not going to do the right thing. They're just not going to. It's up to each and every one of you to say, I'm tired of being left out. I'm tired of you being dishonest. And I'm tired of you not being forthcoming with the citizens, right? So So guys, let's do the
Oh,
right thing.
yeah. Real quick, somebody in the chat earlier asked for my phone number. I'm not going to give out my phone number, even though it just got leaked in two group chats. So
Well, somebody asked me to post mine, and
well
I
done.
did.
But if anybody does want to reach me, it's thisweekinrockdale@gmail.com.
Yep.
wanted to
And
put that
like,
out there.
and my number is on here, 678-524-6159. I don't care if you call me. Don't care if you text me. I've always been available. I've had my number out there for years. Not going to change it. Not going to hide. If you guys need me, you call me, you text me. I'm here for you. Right? I'm not only going to be a member of the Board of Education come January, but I'm going to be your advocate as a citizen advocate. I'm going to fight for you like I always have. That's why this show is not going anywhere. This incident has proven to me even more how necessary that this show is for this community. It has proven to me even more the importance of these local internet media shows, because these are the only way now, these shows, to actually inform you, the citizens, and for you to have a voice, because you're not going to get it through conventional mainstream media any longer. It's going to be small, local media outlets that are going to report these kind of things. So, guys, thank you for supporting this show, and let's just make this grow. Let's grow this so that we've got 250, 400 people watching this show every week and knowing what's going on, and they can talk to their neighbors about what's going on in Rockdale County. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I'll be back on next Sunday at 8 p.m. as long as I'm allowed to have access to Facebook.
Right. Right.
If not, then I may have to get some friends to post something to go to the YouTube channel. But we'll figure something out. Thank you. Good night, and I will talk to you guys and see you next.